Salam and welcome back, everybody, to our podcast, Unapologetic, the Third Narrative.
Our authentic and original initiative in light of the war in Israel and Gaza.
A platform where we will share our identities, views, and experience from the ground.
Amira, it's been a month.
It has been a month.
It's been too long.
Not too long. It's not just for a podcast. I haven't seen you in a month.
I know, that's what I mean.
So I'd like to tell you welcome back.
And to you too. You also been gone. We're both actually been gone in the past few weeks.
Yeah, we did. We started this podcast, this initiative, in light of the war. And I think no one wants nor expected that this war has continued up until now. It's day that we're recording this. It's day 72 of the war. And I would like to say, and of course you agree, that we are so proud that we're continuing our work in peace and bridging people together, creating dialogue, creating the third narrative and highlighting it. But I think it's also important we do other things. So what have we been up to?
Yeah, like you said, we've been working on our third narrative within the podcast, but also in general, talking about our own, doing our own work and advocacy, especially since the war started. So 2 weeks ago, I was in the Equivalent International School in Geneva, where I went and spoke to the students about the conflict, about the war, about the third narrative.
Yeah.
About what's happening and what's our view as peace activists for what do we expect the help from the international community. And you're talking about a school that has, I think, 135 nationalities.
Wow.
And another side note that was a highlight from my trip is that I actually met the personal bodyguard of Nelson Mandela.
You did tell me, but you didn't tell me
tell
details about this meeting.
Honestly, probably like something I will remember for life.
Wow.
It was that powerful. He was his bodyguard while he was the prime minister or president. And he actually was also in jail as well. He was also imprisoned as a political activist. And I want to share one tiny little story because it reflects on everything we talk about.
Share away. That's what we're here for.
So Nelson Mandela, what he did when he took office, I mean, one tiny little side note is that he was only in office once because he believed that staying in office means corruption. AKA for some people that we know in our own politics. Wink, wink to our politics in Israel.
Not just in Israel.
I'm taking it to home. And also, Israel and the Palestinian Authority both are known to love to stay in the seat. And so in that government, he actually put both sides into the government. So it was also the opposition and people who were with him in the movement against segregation, but also it was fractions from the previous government, people that were actively against them, working actively against them. And one of the people was actually another bodyguard. That bodyguard was from the side of the previous government, and this guy was in charge of torturing Chris, the bodyguard, in jail.
Wow.
He was the person in charge of...
Sounds like a very light meeting that you had.
Yeah, and he tells me that he talked to Mandela about it and how difficult it is for him to be with someone from, the other side and someone who was actively torturing him. And, obviously Mandela was trying to bring people together and to break the barriers. And in fact, Chris told me that one day out of the blue, him and the other bodyguard were sitting down, and the other bodyguard just looks at him and was like, I just hope that a day will come where you can actually forgive me.
Wow.
And he decided to forgive him. So that bodyguard took Chris to the church, and there is a very symbolic Christian act where you wash someone's feet. So that bodyguard sat Chris down, took off his shoes and washed his feet. And then Chris did the same. He told him that I want to do the same and I'll wash your feet. and as a sign of forgiveness. So, you hear that, and then you say to yourself, they're not better than we are. If they can do it, why can't we? If they were able to break away from the violence that tormented their lives, someone is looking at a person who was in charge of torturing you in jail, and you're able to forgive. That's the biggest lesson I've taken from that trip, honestly, and it will be with me for life. What about you, Amira? You had a hectic period as well. I
What
was in
about
Geneva,
me?
and you were doing your own work.
Yeah, I spent 2 weeks in London touring around with an organization, an NG. It's a British educational charity fund called Solutions Not Sides. And what it does many things for young leaders, amongst which is that it exposes them to Palestinians and Israelis through tours. So I went for 2 weeks alongside an Israeli counterpart, and we toured around schools where we would have a session where we shared our personal stories, me as a Palestinian and the other person as an Israeli, and we delved deep into identities, whether that means Palestinian Israeli or that means Middle Eastern Israeli and others with different backgrounds, and answer all sorts of questions for students that are 13 plus, like 13 to 18, 19. And it was, first of all, like removing yourself from a conflict zone from a war zone. It's not just a conflict zone anymore. It's currently an active violent war zone, was very traumatizing. You realize how much of a big toll the current situation and years of conflict and now months of war have an effect on you, where each and every like boom, car or motorcycle going by, you think it's a siren, or you think that something is going to happen. And the questions that I was asked, oh my God, the questions that I was asked now, the questions that I was asked were obviously very simplified or very extreme, like going from one extreme to another, because they're being asked by people that are not from this conflict area, whether they're Israeli or Palestinian. There were, but they're not currently living here. And two are younger, are not like they're teenagers from 13 to 18, like I said. And it was very nice. Sometimes it was I had a lot of stubborn questions that we had to, and difficult ones. And other times it was very inspiring to see people we had a young Muslim boy. His name is Yasser. And he stood up after a very difficult conversation, and him being a little bit stubborn in his views, which he didn't move on his views, but he was exposed to more views. And he stood up and he apologized. He was
Wow.
not for what he's doing, but he was I'm just so sorry that you too have to go through what you're going through, and that we are making it harder here, in the UK, that we're making it harder for you. And it really put, I don't cry easily, and I felt like I had tears in my eyes, and other people actually, I'm simplifying his message, but he delivered it so beautifully.
Wow.
And it shows you that actually listening to people from the conflict, how much it changes, how much it makes you feel. The people behind the slogans, behind the percentages and the statistics and the flags. So that was very nice. How was your experience in the airport?
Oh, well, before the airport, I would say one thing is that I've noticed, and because I usually don't meet with high schoolers.
Yeah.
It was one of the few times that I did, and it was 17, 18-year-olds.
Yeah.
But in general, I've noticed that with the high schoolers, in general, there's a bit more, the questions are more because they want to learn.
Yeah.
And they want to know. And there's more eagerness. They're still like a sponge. They're still absorbing. They're still taking in. They're still wanting to learn. With college students, it's more, I want to ask a question in a way to prove you wrong.
Yeah. It's a debate. It turns into debate.
Yeah, and to show you that I'm smarter than you are. And I will give you that one question that will spin your head, and I'm going to put you on the spot. you see that these attempts more. It's not like, obviously it's not everyone, but you see a bit more of these attempts to try to, put you on the spot and things like this, not for the sake of knowing, but for the sake of arguing.
Yeah. No, it's really easier. Not easier, it's more hopeful to talk to young future leaders. Because we see, especially in the UK, the aspirations, the politicians that come up, the activists that come out of the UK, not even activists, just the outspoken youth that comes out of the UK, and a lot of knowledgeable youth from the UK. So to be able to have the opportunity to talk to them when they're still forming that mold that becomes so stubborn when they're in university age, was great. Like, I think it was an amazing experience.
Well, I'll be, we've had, you and me, a couple of suggestions and a couple of requests to go and visit in some universities in the future.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to it. I mean, I cannot wait to talk to the students. Like, I don't take it as a bad thing at all. But it's important to bring our narrative, our third narrative, to break some stereotypes, to put things that they might have never expected before about life in Israel and Palestine.
Yeah.
Airport.
How did it feel to be a security threat?
That was the first. Okay, so it's important to put things in perspective, right?
Okay.
On every Israeli passport, once you get your ticket, they put you a sticker right at the entrance. They sticker your passport, and you have a number between 1 and 6.
They actually changed it.
I know.
Did you notice?
I did notice.
It's from 1 to 7.
Yep, I did notice. It used to be 1 to 6, and now
No. It's 1 to 7. It used to be 1 to 7.
It used to be 1 to 6, I thought.
1 to 7.
Really? I thought 6 was the highest. No?
6 was the highest because 7 is a terrorist.
Oh, okay. Well, you know what I mean. 1 to 6 passing through. Okay, not allowed. But I always was on 3 out of 6, which is basically they open only my luggage, my carry-on, which is fine. I always chat to the guy and like ask about his family, like stuff like this, just to pass the time. I mean, it's just who I am. I cannot be.
No. I get what you're saying.
And it's his job.
Yeah.
Like, I know that he's just doing it because it's his job. And to be completely also like fair, the 2 people who were, brought to the extra security were Jews. But it was the 3 of us were all single male traveling alone.
Yeah. Okay. That was a profile.
Yeah, it was definitely a profile, but it wasn't only just Arab profile. Like, it was also Jews who were stopped with me. But it was the first time I've ever been taken to the machine where they scan your body and everything.
Oh, really?
They take I took my shoes off and I'm like, what's going on? Like, I know that I finished with the suitcase and with the carry-on and it's done. He's like, yeah, we kind of like increased the level of security to everyone since the war. So I was like,
we ranked you up.
I was like, I got upgraded. I'm getting new experiences. So, it's just going through the machine, taking my shoes off, and that's it. And on the way back, it was also like an extra security check for El Al flight.
Yeah.
And there they were asked me to go downstairs, which was the first time I go to a downstairs of the airport. Like, God knows what happens there, right? But it was also very chill, very like 2 seconds, just like open my backpack, checking everything. And they didn't even ask me too many like questions almost at all. Oh, where were you? What were you doing? Oh, that's very amazing. That's great work. And that's it. Like, they were, because I'm always nice to them. I don't know. Yeah. So I never got bad responses when I was nice to security people, to be honest. What about you?
So
if I had extra security, how did you get out of the country?
So in
you used to be 6, Amira.
Let me tell my story. So usually in normal circumstances, removed from the war and removed from the current situation that we're in, like Ibrahim said, the natural thing was, the natural metric system was like, the natural system, was from 1 till 7. And I always get a 6. So 7 is a high risk terrorist.
7, you're not flying.
I always get a 6. No matter where I'm flying to, who I'm flying with, I always get a 6. So this is my usual interaction with the airport. I go in, I give them my passport. They look at me, they smile, they see Jerusalem. Then they look at the code that they understand that I don't understand. And they look and there's like, 1 second. And they leave and I don't see them for half an hour, at least. And this time there was the same thing. And I was expecting actually like very, very hard and harsh security measures. On my way out, it was the usual. Like everything that you explained, the x-ray machine, that's each and every time I fly. Every time I
That was my
fly,
first time.
my entire luggage is searched. I'm x-rayed. I could take my shoes off. Sometimes I'm even like body checked. Like that's each and every time. But this time they didn't ask a lot of questions. Like usually, where's your family from? Where are you? Like usually I get interrogated. On the way out, I was not. On my way back, on my way back, I wasn't allowed to have a carry-on. They kind of told me like first they were like, would you like to check in your carry-on? And I was like, if it's free. And I was like, we'll make it free.
Oh wow.
And I was like, oh, so I like she basically entailed like
Give me your luggage.
yeah.
Which is
So-
no complaints,
So
right?
no complaints. Like take my luggage. Because I know that they're gonna go through everything. So I was like,
Right.
it'll be easier for me just take my luggage. And every single like bag I had, even my small pouch was tagged.
Oh, wow.
Everything. Like you know how your suitcase is tagged with a roll thingy?
Yep, that it's been opened and everything.
So my purse, my backpack, and my like fanny pack thing, all of them were tagged separately. And I wait for like a long time when they check my passport, and then I'm let go. And I was like, wow, that was easy. But why did they tag my bags? Like I don't understand. And then I start like there's the call for my flight, and I stand in line. And then I see the same person that took my passport, and they were like, "Hi, Amira, we would like to see you in a separate room."
Of course.
Then they take me to a separate room, and they were very nice, I have to say. Like you said, they're just doing their job. And they go through all my shit. And then she asks me for my phone. And I'm like, I'm gonna make noise if you ask me to open my phone in my head. And then I was like, I told her, what do you need my phone for? And she was like, just like bring it here. And then she measures it.
Interesting.
That's the first to me.
That's interesting. Yeah, I would not be okay with having them open my phone. I can tell you that much. Like I'll stay here.
I know people that go through that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I know people who refused,
Yeah.
and they
I
were
would
fine
refuse.
actually at the end, because yeah, it's your right as a citizen.
Yeah, I would refuse, but I found it very weird that she measured my phone.
That's
Like,
very
if
weird.
anyone knows why, like,
Give us the answers, guys. Anybody work for El Al Security who's listening to this podcast? Give us the answers.
And it took like a millisecond. I put my phone, and she took, and then I took it back.
We have a mutual friend who worked in the past.
Yeah, that's true.
In the security
yes.
in El Al. We're gonna have to ask him, and the next episode, guys, will give you the answer.
It will
we
give you the
promise.
answer. So now we're back talking about students that have asked us many questions. It brings us to a lot of listeners that have asked so many questions. And we tried to convey, to put, like, there were many questions that were asked multiple times. So we tried to catch the most frequently asked questions repeatedly, and to also try and separate them in a way that will be kind of like a chronological order that would make sense to a listener, not have like random questions popping up. So first question is, what made you shift your way of thinking to a peaceful mindset? So a lot of the questions, like I know a lot of the questions were asked, or let's say like 99% of the questions were asked with like pure intent, but a lot of them were asked in a way that was very
Condescending in a way.
Yes, condescending and in a snarky, witty way. So
I think it's important because not everybody would have understood what you meant after hearing you saying the question the first time. So let's say the question again, because it's important to highlight what triggers us.
Yeah.
Because some of the listeners will not even like pick that up.
Yeah. So, Ibrahim, what made you, as a Palestinian, shift your way of thinking to a peaceful mindset?
Wallahi, before I wasn't, and now I am. You know, like this is.
It's like the backhanded compliment that we get on our comment section, which is, "Wow, first time I hear a Palestinian making sense. A peaceful Palestinian. Wow!" Like that is not a compliment. That is not a compliment.
We're not the only ones. First of all, I think it's important to say it like that. We're not a sole voice for anyone who's expecting that me and Amira are coming out of out of nowhere and bringing these ideas that don't exist within the Palestinian society. I'm sorry, it's not the case. We're not unique in any sense in that way at all. We have other friends, colleagues, people who are working on this conflict and have been working forever. And our Palestinian friends who are putting also their selves on the line and putting themselves at risk at times and speaking out. And the first one that we'll bring on the podcast will be probably next week. So tune in for that.
Yeah.
So we'll have somebody who's born and raised in the West Bank who'll share his experience and how he found the way to become
peaceful mindset.
But
I think we are unique in the sense of, we know that it's extremely dangerous for Palestinians specifically to speak up. Like, they might, like, this might be true, like, have a shift of mindset that they were anti-Israel, like, bring the state down, and then something happened in their lives that made them shift to a peaceful mindset. We're not saying that that doesn't exist. That does exist.
But to expect that this is...
That's the normal, that Palestinians are these monsters and something
or that they shift.
Yeah.
I was raised with my mom who, raised me just on humanity and accepting people as people. She never wanted us to even differentiate religions.
Yeah.
As a little kid, I had no idea the difference between Muslims and Christians.
Wow.
It's to that extent. My mom was very adamant about it.
You didn't see religion.
I did not see religion at all. And I even one time my mom, my cousin asked me in first grade, second grade, who's your best friend? And I'm like, his name is Majd Bshara at that time. And Bshara is Besorah, or in English is Annunciation, which is the Church of Annunciation, where Jesus received the message from Gabriel that she'll have a son and all that in Nazareth, my city. And, I told that to my cousin. He's like, is he Muslim or Christian? And I'm like, I don't know. And he has the most Christian name in the entire world, right? Bishara, Besorah, Annunciation. It's the most Christian, but I had no idea what that is. So I don't know. I've never been raised on hate or anything like that. On the contrary, I think it's all this and all my work today, everything comes down to how I was raised and how my mom educated me on, humane values and to respect people and to look at people as all equal. And I'm very thankful to that, because that's why I am here today. But maybe the shift is like you said, from being silent
to being outspoken.
And here, for sure, there was a shift. But it's something that we talked about already in the first episode, and since then, that we just had enough, and we feel that it's now or never, and that we need to speak now because of what's going on, and we want an end to the entire conflict. That we're khalas. We're sick of it.
Yeah. And some people don't. Why is this unique? It's because not because people don't want to, not because it's an easy risk to take. For some, it's an easy risk to take. We're privileged that we, in ways that the risks that we have taken in coming out and being outspoken are less. They're there, but they're less for others. For someone to come and talk the way we're talking from the West Bank or from Gaza, during normal circumstances, let alone now, it could lead to threatening their own lives, ruining their professional career, not being admitted to jobs, their kids not being admitted to schools, not being able to get a loan from a bank. They'll be ostracized from society. That's why the voices aren't there. But right now, because you said, a lot of people, including me and Ibrahim, are saying it's now or never. Our lives are already shitty. So we're going to take a step forward to say how we can change things. And for me, it wasn't an actual shift, like you said. I was raised I think it was just a shift to me, seeing the difference between a brutal occupation and to see the presence of democracy in Israel, and to see what we can actually achieve and I actually had to discover, and we'll get to it later on in different stories, discover what it means to have Israeli citizenship, because in my community, it wasn't something that was talked about. And I had to understand what the difference between that is. I had to understand what the difference between 48 and 67 was. And I think my shift in mindset was more, like you said, it was more deciding to devote my career towards this activism. But I didn't change. I'm the exact same. Um, and I think we should shift to a more serious question that has to do with the current situation. Doesn't have to do with peace at all. It's, do you believe that Israel does what it can to reduce civilian casualties?
Well, I guess the honest answer is unfortunately no.
Yeah. And we
Um,
saw that recently.
we saw that recently from the reports coming out of the latest three hostages that, according to reports, were killed from the Israeli attack
Yeah.
in Gaza. So if you are being very careful about not hitting casualties, so you're trying to figure out where our people, where our innocent civilians are at, and try not to hit those areas and all these things. And if the army hit three Israelis, how much are they caring for when there's a presence of
Palestinian
Palestinians?
civilians.
You know what I mean? Like,
and these are, like, we can acknowledge the element of fear, the element of trauma, the element of like the own soldier fearing their own life.
oh,
But
100%.
yeah. But the in this situation, there was like the reports show that they raised a white flag, wrote SOS on the building, left a message in Hebrew. That they shot the first two, and then the third was injured, went back in, and then was shot again and killed. So I don't call that, like, if I think what's not being highlighted in the media is that if these Israeli civilians were killed by the IDF accidentally, what about the Palestinian civilians? How, like, there is no way to differentiate in midst of these circumstances.
Right, and that's one story that we heard
Yeah.
about because it got published, because it's the Israelis. How many stories like that have happened so far to Palestinian innocent people?
So we repeat, the answer is unfortunately
Unfortunately,
no.
no. We would have hoped it's better, but and also it's war.
Yeah.
War is not nice. It's not kind. War is brutal, and people in times of war, like you say, like, you don't know also what happened to that soldier. His cousin might have been killed a day before.
Yeah.
Or on
There was
October
also
7th.
a big I saw a report that talked about the amount of soldiers that died due to friendly fire. It was also like it wasn't a small amount. I don't remember the number, but they existed because of the fear, because of the everything that we talked about. But again, it's not an excuse.
It's humans, and humans, it's hard to judge.
And we say that war is ugly, and we say, like, a word that I hate. I hate war crimes. I hate that phrase. I hate that word. Like,
I don't
war
know a
is
war
the
without.
crime.
I don't know a war
Really?
without any crimes. Really,
Like a war crime. What does that, like, what?
it's like people talk about, not to hit the innocent and things like, well, World War II, the innocent were the major people who were
Yeah.
hit more than anyone else. So these things happen in war, and we understand that as political analysts and things like that. We understand that, but still, we're humans. In the same time, we feel the pain of knowing that innocent people are dying.
That's why we advocate for a
continue.
peaceful solution to end
Absolutely.
the cycle of violence, to end the suffering, the trauma that both Palestinians and Israelis have been going on, that have been living in for years and generation after generation. Next, let's talk about Gaza. Do you have friends or family in Gaza?
No family in Gaza, but
Me
I do have friends in Gaza.
Friends, colleagues
Yep.
that either don't work in the peace building field, that we know for, like, because we know, like, we know
some in the
people,
peace
and some in the
building, and
peace
some
building.
others, like some from friends in the peace building. And since the beginning of the war, we were working with one of our very close friends and colleague whose family's was in Gaza.
And
She was outside.
Thankfully, she could help and remove them from help them get out of Gaza.
Yeah, it was not us. It was, I don't know, 20 different people who were working on the case. We reached out to all our network. Other people reached out, and till today, we don't even know who exactly is the person that put their name on the list to get them out of Gaza. But we know that we reached out to everyone that we can.
And we continue to, because it's not like it's only one.
It's not one case.
Yeah.
We're dealing with another one. At least I'm dealing with another one right now. As soon as I landed from Geneva, the next day I had a call with someone from Gaza who was one of the hardest conversations, honestly, I've ever had.
Yeah, tell us about it.
You know, the person, with all the difficulties that Gaza was in, he was trying to build a life. He was trying to make a business.
Mm-hmm.
And he said that, you know, the business in a single night wiped. The dream of building that business, of improving their life, was wiped on October 7th. And that person lost his sister
Mm-hmm.
and her kids, so his nephews, in the 6th day of the war. And he was still telling me, like, listen, we have no other option but to live. And the only thing that we want is to live in dignity, to live in peace. Like, why is nobody letting us also get out of Gaza? Because we don't want to die here. And we feel that if we stay, we'll die.
And the other, I remember having this conversation with you, and I was talking to my friend from Gaza, from Khan Yunis. And I told her, like, we're trying to find help. Please send me your information. Tell me, like, your kids' names, your name, your husband's name. Please let me help you. And she was like, where are we going to go? She asked me, like, okay, you get us out. Where am I supposed to go?
Yeah. Not everybody has the answer, you know, not everybody has the ability to also go somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
Right now in Egypt, you are able to stay with a visa for about 45 days.
Mm-hmm.
But and that's actually a question that came in our questions from the audience about the role of Egypt. Well,
the role of Egypt, and we also were asked about the role of other Arab countries. So if you can, like, talk about all of that.
You know, specifically Egypt, since it's on the border. One, I think it's important to emphasize that, you know, some people say, why doesn't Egypt alone let the people out? It doesn't work like that. Egypt is in collaboration with COGAT, which is the Center for Communications for the Israeli military in the Palestinian territories. And they provide the approval for the people. So there is a collaboration going on every single person that comes out of Gaza. And the COGAT and the IDF need to give approval to that. But the problem on the Egyptian side also is that we're seeing, I don't even know what word to use for it, other than dehumanization of the Gazan people by Egyptians.
And taking advantage of the shitty, horrible situation that we're in.
By military intelligence, who are literally treating people, and I'm sorry to use the word, like cattle. They're asking them for $3,000, quote unquote, per head. $3,000, between 3 to 5 per person.
So even if they wanted and were qualified to get out, where are they going to get the money from?
Because, by the way, the Egyptians, if you write it on the Egyptian document, you'll be out in 2 days. You can. But what's happening right now to these people is that they're not being let out. And you talk to one of the intelligence officers, and he tells you, sure, and I'll add your family. And then they'll say, oh, only part of the family can. We have quota. Like, you're playing with people's lives.
Yeah.
And people are putting everything they ever owned and paying money.
And then get ghosted.
And then they get ghosted. So, and it's, as someone who lived in Egypt, shame on you, really. Like, as much as, you know, in that year, I've met, you know, countless Egyptians, and the amount of passion and love for our people, for our situation, and care, at the moment, they're empty words. I'm sorry. At the moment, we need real help. And I heard beautiful statements from Egyptian friends in the past, but at the moment, our people in Gaza need action, and not your speech of how much you support our people, but taking actions to support them. Because your people are right now taking advantage of them. Where's your stand against that?
Another thing that that Egypt and the Arab world can do is to put pressure for the entrance of more humanitarian aid to enter Gaza, because we hear from our friends that it's not enough. Not only for two reasons. One, that yes, the quantity that's entering is not enough. We're hearing from our friends that that they're standing in line waiting for bread and water, and they don't even get that sometimes. There's that, and two, there's Hamas taking that humanitarian aid for itself and selling it to Gazans. I repeat, Hamas selling the humanitarian aid to Gazans.
Yep.
What do you think? I don't even like, it's like we talked about Egyptians taking advantage of the situation, then you have Hamas taking advantage of the situation. Like what's going on is whoever has an upper hand, whether that's relation to Hamas or not related to Hamas, will do whatever it takes to get that humanitarian aid for their family.
Yeah.
So it's like armed attacks on the humanitarian aid, taking it and then selling it to other people.
Yeah, now it's not only Hamas doing it
Yeah.
anymore because people are so desperate and realizing there's no
It's like looting.
ability to. They're looting the humanitarian aid because that's the only way that they can get it. It's the situation there is unimaginable, really, and that's part of the damn reason why we started this, because we want to end the whole conflict, and the ones who are paying the price highest than anyone else, specifically in the past 20 years, have been the people of Gaza.
Yeah,
they've taken the toll, and I feel we're sacrificing them. We're sacrificing them for
I don't even know what anymore.
What, a dream of retaking the land, of what? Because we've seen, and we talked about it again and again, that war hasn't helped us as Palestinians, only reducing land and rights. And in order to improve the situation, negotiations should take place.
Yeah.
And that's the role that we want to, help to push for as much as we can.
And we highlighted the bad. Let's sprinkle a little bit of hope. We have the UAE, like we talked about the Arab world. The UAE has established some sort of a ground hospital in El Arish military airport in South Egypt, where it's treating more than 100 cancer and injured Gazans right now. And of course, we have to say that I think like it was like a beacon of hope for me to see that it's not just condemnations, it's not just people like countries around saying that, oh, this conflict must end, but it's something they're helping, and they're actually being there on the ground, not from afar.
And we hope for better and more, initiatives from everyone, honestly.
Yeah. Whether Arab countries, Muslim countries, MENA countries, or European ones
community.
in Western.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Remember the last episode when we talked about how everyone in Israeli and Palestinian politics should retire?
Yes, of course.
We were asked when and if it is relevant for a peace activist to ever, in the point of their career, to shift from grassroots and civil society to politics.
Yeah, mainly like how can the peace activist community, because we're not politicians as peace activist community, and when we talk as peace activists about solutions, we bring them from analytical point of view a lot of the times that is sometimes puts aside the political complexities that exist on the ground. And that's part of the challenge of peace activism, actually, in changing the reality. When you have extreme far right in Israel, how do you deal with that within the Israeli perspective? And also, how do you deal with Hamas and other extreme radical groups in the Palestinian society? And how do you bring all these equations into your work as someone who's preaching for peace?
Yeah.
How can we, push for peace with the consideration of these elements that exist?
I think both are extremely, extremely important. Like one cannot exist without the other, because you do need diplomats, you do need politicians, but at the same time, being a politician isn't something that's relatable, isn't something that speaks to the people. No matter how, I know it does in a way, but at the same time, civil society is something completely different. I think that both are extremely important and vital, especially right now. And when I say that, I am referencing Palestine and I'm referencing Israel as well. But there also should be a link between civil society and diplomats. And that I think we're lacking a little bit, especially in Palestine. I think in Israel, it's like the
there's a push, at least from the
yeah,
peace activist
there's a
community.
push.
There are protests,
Yeah.
now against the continuing of the war, before against the judicial reforms. So civil society in Israel have been active, at
Yeah.
least. You're right. And it's something that we haven't seen enough of in the Palestinian society. One case I would bring up is the case of Nizar Banat.
Yeah.
And for those who don't know, he was an activist.
Yeah.
He was an influencer on social media mainly, and talking.
Which is something you don't see.
Not a lot.
It's not a wide phenomenon.
And he was talking about the corruption of the PA,
Yeah.
something that we've talked about as well.
This is
And
also to highlight how dangerous things
how
is.
dangerous
Continue.
it is. You're absolutely right. Because, for us here, we're speaking. But I know that I'm not going to the West Bank anytime soon,
Yeah.
right? Like, I'm
To
not
the West
going
Bank
back.
or Egypt.
Or, or Egypt after this
We're
today's
crossing
episode.
off one at a time.
One at a time. I mean, but some things have to be said.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter the price. And particularly for this issue, like, Nizar Banat was speaking as an activist. He was talking about the corruption, but he was talking about it in a very eloquent way, too. He wasn't shouting at the
That's
screen.
the problem. That
That's
was
what
the problem.
scared them.
That he was talking about it not as a social media troll. He was talking about it in such a diplomatic way that not just the ideas of what he was saying was problematic, but his actual presence of coming up as a new leader or might turn into a new leader was threatening.
Absolutely.
So what did they do?
They imprisoned him. And the next morning, they go to his parents and say, well, we're very sorry, but your son was imprisoned and his situation deteriorated, during overnight, and he passed away.
He was fine. He wasn't sick.
Yeah.
I didn't see any reports of his physical.
And then they asked, where is his body? They said, sorry, we already buried it. Why did they bury it? To hide the wounds, to hide the marks of the torture he's gone through over that night.
I get goosebumps about it. Ugh.
Honestly, the next morning, I expected it to be Tunisia. Like, Tunisia started the Arab Spring with one man and one action, Mohammed Bouaziz in Tunisia, who set himself on fire in front of the government building, and it's as a sign of protest, and it sparked a whole revolution not only in Tunisia but in the entire Arab world. I expected something like that to happen in the West Bank, to be honest. And I have to say, I am disappointed that it didn't. I expected a riot to come out. I expected protests and the PA to be like, I don't know, people storm down the building and destroy it, to be honest. And it didn't happen. And yes, there is a disappointment in that regard, that we need to take action. And we're seeing this, and we saw it, and now we're experiencing it on the Israeli side with protests and stuff like that. Obviously, one of the things and the key elements, and you talked about it a lot in the 4th episode, I believe, about the importance, particularly in the Palestinian side, of strengthening civil society. And that's exactly the example of how crucial it is to strengthen civil society in the Palestinian community.
Another interesting comment or accusations that we sometimes, it's a mix of things that I'm going to present, is people that are saying from both sides, thank you for standing with us. Thank you for standing with Israel. Thank you for being on our side. Thank you for the Israelis. Like, we have a lot of people that are trying to claim us, trying to put us in a box. Whether it's me personally or whether it is this podcast, please, don't waste your time. Don't waste your time trying to put us into a box, because we are here. Our name is Unapologetic because it insinuates that we are not the traditional voices that you are used to listening to. We're not the traditional pro-Israel. We're not the traditional pro-Palestine. We will criticize both, but we will like have our hands out for both to hold on to, because that's what we believe in and that's what we're promoting. We're promoting coexistence, co-resistance, shared society. We believe in all those things, but we also believe in accountability and taking responsibility, whether that's us or the other side, whatever that side is. And then we have, when we share these snippets on Instagram to promote our podcast, basically, and to intrigue people to come and listen to the podcast. We have people like, whenever we criticize Palestine or criticize Israel, we have the, what about this? What about that? What about da da da? Or provide context. Provide context.
Yes, the provide context
Yeah,
one.
the provide context. What I have to tell you is, you have the responsibility to look for the context. When you hear about a quote from a politician from some time in history, it's your responsibility to not take that quote and use it whatever you want. It's your responsibility to go and research it. Same thing here. We have hours and hours of discussion, and social media doesn't work in a way where it's informative. It doesn't. We can't, if we could put this like hours on Instagram, we would, but it doesn't work like that. No one would watch it.
It's a promotional tool. We want to bring our voice to as many people as possible, but we have these 1 minute video. But like you said, we have hours of context about the whole conflict, especially of one of the questions of somebody who asked us that he sees that we criticize the Israeli, tend to criticize the Israeli government.
We just said we're not going to the West Bank. We ain't going to Egypt.
I think, you know, you can hear one video where we talk, and we are going to criticize both sides. I'm sorry, like, if some people don't like it, we will criticize the Israeli government, we will criticize the PA, we'll criticize the international community on everything that we see that it's legitimate. We're not just going to toss, you know, just empty slogans in the air against the Israelis or the Palestinians. Not at all. But we want accountability, and we will talk about accountability. We will bring these nuances to the surface, because that's the reality, and we're not going to shy away from it, and not from anyone, nor the Israeli government and neither the Palestinian Authority. They both have responsibility, and they both made mistakes. As people also, the Palestinian people made mistakes, the Israeli people made mistakes, and we're here to unravel all of the things that got us to where we are. It's not one element, it's not one incident that got us to where we are. It's over 75 years of history, and we're trying to touch on all of it. And we urge you to read and get, you know, more and more knowledge as much as you can in order to,
not just from us, like even when you find the podcast, there's more. There's always more. We interrupt this episode to express our heartfelt gratitude to our supporters and our Patreon members. Without you, we wouldn't be where we are today. So this is a reminder that if you join our Patreon community, you will have access to exclusive content, and you will be the first to know when we have something going on in your city. So that is your reminder to join the Patreon, and you can do it with the link in our description. Thank you so much for your support. We appreciate it a lot. And now to go back to our very popular and loved segment, terminology. Amongst the many questions that we had some terms that were thrown out there and said, what do you think of this? What do you think of that? Because we're limited with time and we don't want this to drag on, I think a good term to talk about is normalization. Now, in one of the episodes, I did say that I don't like this term. I don't like this term because of the negative connotation around it. Not because of what we're actually doing, because a lot of people can say that what we're doing is normalization. Many people don't. I think you should ask what does normalization
actually mean?
Yeah. Exactly. Now, if normalization means normalizing the occupation of the Palestinian people by the state of Israel, then yeah, we're against it, obviously. We talk again and again against the Israeli government, and again and again against the occupation, whether that be in the West Bank or in Gaza. So that's why I don't like it. However, if it is normalizing ties between Israel and Palestine, yeah, we're all for it. That's what we want. We want a peaceful resolution, a peaceful diplomatic resolution that brings the people together. However, if that resolution or if that sort of peace process is going to be a peace process that is written, signed off by Israel and just given to the Palestinian people as if, okay, here's peace, then no, because that's not peace. That's conditions. And if these conditions or if this normalization will result in an erasal of our Palestinian identity and our Palestinianness, or if during the path of our peace process, me and you, or in our activism, if we are led to anything that is erasing our ancestry, erasing our trauma, erasing our pain and our identity, then yeah, that is a negative way of presenting normalization. If the Abraham Accords are normalization accords and ties that normalize with ties with Israel, while simultaneously normalizing the occupation of the Palestinian people, then yeah, no, that shouldn't be the case. Normalization should be presenting a dual narrative. That's what normalization should be. But because of the negative connotation, even in Arabic, tatbiya, it's seen as negative. So that's why I don't like it. I think it shouldn't be called normalization because of what people think about it. I think we should we
need to bring a new term.
Yeah, a new
maybe.
term about it.
We'll think of one for next episode.
We'll
promise.
think of one. Ibrahim will come up with one, I'm sure.
Because I agree with you. My problem with the term is how it's used.
Yeah.
And it is a weapon used by people who don't want, not even like the aspect of normalization, and it's not only people who don't want to normalize the occupation. It's also, in my opinion, it's also been used by people who refuse peace, and then they put everyone who works towards the peace as traitors of the community by using the term tatbir, normalization, and all these
collaborator,
all these negative terms that could be used against someone to put them as someone who's actually working against their community.
Yeah,
which is completely the opposite of what we're trying to do. We're trying to find ways to better the lives of our own people while being very upfront about our identity, about our Palestinian identity, and as well about our Israeli one, because it's part of how we were raised, and we're not eliminating any parts of who we are. And that shouldn't be, what's the term? It shouldn't be judged in that way. But unfortunately it is. We're just going to need to battle on regardless of these people who say it, because me and you, we know in our heart that what we're doing is for the benefit of our people.
And when we say our people, we mean Israelis and Palestinians.
Both of them are
our people.
If some people who will stand in the way and will try to put us in a negative, negative place in order to portray us as traitors of one community or the other, we won't let those people silence us, because that's what they're trying to do. These terms are used to silence these kind of voices. And we're becoming unapologetic. So I'm sorry. No, you're not going to silence us. And we will continue to work for the best things that we can in order to improve our people's lives.
Talking about normalization, usually the force that comes either waving the accusation, the accusational flag of normalization, are people who boycott. So I think we're going to end this episode by talking a little bit about boycotting. What do you think about boycotting? I know we don't align on this view.
We don't align because it's a legitimate tool. It's something that people do use in order to provide economic pressure. I just think that the problem of everything in general, there's sensationalism. So when you start for instance, by boycotting on the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, for instance, if we start with boycotting only businesses that are working in the settlements, but then it drags to everything else to boycott. You know what I mean? It doesn't end with only boycotting a specific thing.
I think let's specify a few things. There's boycotting settlement products. There's boycotting Israel and not coming to visit Israel and boycotting any relations to Israel. There's boycotting institutions and organizations that fund the Israeli military. There's boycotting Israelis. So if you ask me, I think, like you said, I think boycotting is a legit, and we see time and time again, it's a legit, effective way of peaceful resistance. And I can't be that someone that advocates for peace and a peaceful resolution. I can't tell someone that they can't boycott. I think that it's an extremely peaceful and effective way that they can use. I'd much rather someone boycott than do something harmful. Um, um, but if it drags to a point where you're boycotting dialogue, where you're removing yourself from a room where your voice might make a difference, that's where I make my own personal decision where I have another route where I can be effective. I don't boycott, but I'm not against boycotting.
Mm-hmm.
I do boycott the settlements. I do boycott the things that I can within the state of Israel. The things that I can that would help. I try to buy from
Local,
local Palestinian shops whenever I can. But I won't boycott a conversation. There are many people that because an ex-military person is in a room, which is basically all of Israel, don't enter the room, don't start the conversation. I think that I don't agree with that. I think that's you preventing people from hearing your voice.
Mm-hmm.
And if it turns to a point where we are boycotting Jews, then that's where we cross the line. Like if it's like Israel equals Jews equals boycotting all Jews, again, I can't tell you not to go to a specific place, or not to listen, like please listen to a specific person, like singer, if it's culture and art. But like there has to be lines. And the thing that you hate also is when boycotts are enforced on people. It's like you have to boycott.
And the problem is that the lines are invisible lines in the sand.
Yeah.
That's my problem, is that what you're saying is all great, but in the reality, what I see is that it always stretches beyond. It's never, unfortunately, it's never, oh, okay, I'm just going to boycott the Israeli settlement
But
products.
what about with Russia?
And not other things about the population, you know, like we start with the settlements and then it becomes to the state of Israel and then becomes Israelis.
Mm-hmm.
And then it drags to boycotting Jews. That's my problem,
Yeah.
that it starts with one thing and ends to the other. The other side of the problem that I see is that when it hurts, especially on the Israeli-Palestinian context, more than Russia, I guess, is how boycott can actually hurt the people that you're supporting.
Mm-hmm.
And that comes out of ignorance and not understanding the conflict
Yeah.
enough. I remember we had a few years back the Eurovision, the competition between the European between the countries, for the best singing performance, and the country that wins hosts the next year's event. So one Israeli singer won. And then the next year they had it in Israel. I think it was 2018 or 19, if I'm not mistaken. And people were starting to talk about boycotting the Eurovision. And in the same time that I was seeing posts and calls to boycott the Eurovision that year, don't come to Israel and all these things, in the same time on Channel 13, Israeli channel, I saw a piece about how the hotels in Ramallah and Bethlehem are preparing for the Eurovision because they're aware that there are not enough hotel rooms in Jerusalem and Tel Aviv.
And there are people that want to boycott Israeli and want to stay.
And it's also cheaper.
Yeah.
And it's cheaper. And there's not enough room. So guess what? The Palestinian hotels did not put someone in the security at the entrance asking if people came to the Eurovision or not. And if they're coming to the Eurovision, they're not coming into the hotel. No, they didn't. They're welcoming people. They need goddamn economy. They need to improve their situation economically. They want to provide jobs for the workers. And when you're boycotting, the first ones who are getting hurt by it are Palestinians. That's where my
Yeah,
problem
yeah. And
lies.
sometimes it's musicians that want to perform in Haifa, and then organizations that promote normalization are like boycott this, boycott that. They're going to an Arab community, like a Palestinian community. I think it's not thought through well enough, and of course, there's ulterior motives behind it, as it always is.
Similar thing happened with SodaStream, and that's a company inside the West Bank.
Yeah.
It was a business that it's in the settlement community, and because of so it was boycotted because of the fact that it was inside a settlement area. The business moved out of the settlements. It moved out of the West Bank because of all the boycott. But guess what? 90% of the workers were Palestinians in the
I
factory.
don't know how I feel about that.
But it's true.
I don't know how to feel about that because it's normalizing settlements. I don't think
I know. I agree on the outside. But as the Palestinian family itself,
True.
they needed the income. They did not care about settlements. Ask every settlement in the West Bank, who built your house? It's Palestinians. Hello? I'm bringing you like a news flash. It's Palestinians who built the settlements. Like, people don't delve too deep into these complexities, but these are part of the complexities. People need to live. They need to live.
It's also taken advantage of because it's cheap cheap labor.
Cheap labor. And so with all these things together, everybody wins. The Palestinian is looking for a job, looking for money to provide his kids, his wife, his family. That's his number one priority. And if he was able to do that in a factory in the settlements, he'll do it. Mm-hmm. It's better than not having a job. It's not a great option, obviously. I wish we had factories in the West Bank that are, by the Palestinian Authority. But we talked enough about how the Palestinian Authority, what it does with the support that it gets. So it's very complicated. It's not a black and white scenario with the boycotts. I think that's the one thing that we can take out of it. It's very complicated. Mm-hmm. You have Palestinian families who are getting benefit from the fact that there's a factory in the West Bank. Mm-hmm. So it's very reverse kind of perception. So it's like, I don't know. It's always been very difficult for me to wrap my head around, especially when you look at the details. And again, ask the person who worked there whether or not he supports it.
My family inside of East Jerusalem, like from Sheikh Jarrah, we would, when it was like wartime or when something would happen, we would like feel inside of Israel, it's sometimes extremely difficult to boycott because it's not a 100% thing. Like you say that you're boycotting, but at the same time you pay taxes. At the same time you do this. Like you literally pay for the army, and it's kind of like weird to think about, but you do what you can. Well, let's end this. I'm going to end this with a cute story. So while I was in London, I was invited to the 70th anniversary of a Iraqi synagogue. And I thought a little bit about it. I was like, should I be seen at one of these? Should I go? Should I not go? And then I was like, no, I don't like, again, I'm not against boycotting, but I don't boycott people. I don't boycott.
And it's a synagogue. Yeah. It's not a political entity.
I saw that amidst these current situations, synagogue, Jewish, Israeli, it's going to be brought up. Like they're going to bring out the war. I'm going to be not only non-Jew, I'm going to be the Palestinian in the room.
Oh, I see what you mean.
So I went there and I was like, no, I think I should be there. I think I should go. And I went. I didn't go by myself. Like I had a friend with me and I went. And there was a mix up with tables, like there was not enough room. So they put us like in the back with this like religious group of old people. And we sit and I was like, I didn't know who like would, like, I don't have the word Palestinian on my forehead. I didn't know who was gonna, so I like just went with the flow. So I sat down and apparently, I didn't know if they knew that I was Palestinian or not. So the person next to me asked me in Hebrew, like, do you know Hebrew? And I was like, yes. And he was like, where did you come from? Israel? And I was like, technically, yes, I did come from Israel. Like I came from Ben Gurion Airport. And I felt like really stressed out and watched the entire time. Like they were seeing when I was clapping, because there was like, they were talking about the IDF and there was like conversation. They were seeing when I was clapping, when I was like drinking my water and stuff. And then there was a talk about the hostages. And they had small electronic candles on the tables, which I thought was absolutely beautiful. And there wasn't enough because me and my friend were added to the table. So I wanted to respect their presence, and I like put the candle that was in front of me in between me and the person next to me, which was also an old Jewish man. And I told him, like, you can take it. It's all yours. And he took it, and like during the song and the prayer, he lifted it up, and in the middle he gave it to me and he told me, "For your people." And then
Wow.
I took that and I was like, this is so powerful. But then I looked at him and I told him, they're not my people, they're people. They're our people. And then we lifted it together. It was very symbolic. It was very nice.
It's beautiful.
So these kind of things are, and then it continued, and I heard Arabic songs. I was like, this is my first time. I've never been in a Jewish wedding, like a Mizrahi Jewish wedding, a Middle Eastern Jewish wedding or celebration. And they had the same songs we put on, the same dances, the same like the same things. And I felt like I'm so happy that I went. I'm so happy that my perspective like was there. I was, after that we had a long conversations about things, and to show my perspective, to show the similarity between being Palestinian, being Arab, and the similar culture. Again, I can't I can't force anyone to not boycott or to boycott, but I can show what you're missing out on bringing to the table when you do boycott certain things. And I think that we can end it this way, no?
Yeah, that's what I feel is missing when you boycott, is you're missing the opportunity to learn and to absorb from someone else. And this is the goal of the podcast. So for me, no boycotts, please. I'm kidding. But
for me, do what you can to help the situation.
Yeah. And I
but
guess
make sure it helps.
The last question that we had from one person is, how can we do to help?
Yeah.
The people sitting in the West. Well, you can start by spreading this podcast.
The third narrative. Anything you see that aligns with the third narrative, push it.
Exactly. Anything that's not only our podcast, anything that has to do with ending this conflict, ending this misery for both of our people, we are all for it. So we need your voice, and all our voices need to be amplified, because guess what? So far, the voices that are calling for hate are louder. Guys, it's our duty to make sure that our voice is louder than theirs.
To spread hope, to spread the need for togetherness, have an open mind, a listening ear. These are simple things that you can do, and make sure what you're posting, even if it's factful, make sure it's not written in a hateful way.
Yep. And as we always say, remember that at the end of the day, all of us, Israelis and Palestinians, Arabs and Jews, all of us deserve better.